Welcome to your forecast for the week of April 20th through April 26th, 2025. As always, we're going to start with your horoscope for this week, looking at the major astrological transits that are up for us, and then we'll get into our 3-card tarot spread. I want to mention that I just released our Taurus season Tarotscope on my Patreon, and it's available at the Mercury tier and up, and you can also purchase it as a one-off reading if you want to do that and you don't want to become a patron. Also, I am offering a Taurus season discount for Taurus suns who want to book a live reading with me, whether that's astrology, tarot, Akashic records. You can use code Taurus 2025 to take 20% off of all live readings with me through May 19th. So definitely take advantage of that, and happy birthday, Taurus. Okay, let's get into your reading for the week. So we have a big week ahead of us. It starts strong, it ends strong, and there's a lot of mishigas in between. It's a mixed bag, as is always the case with the skies. It's never just a totally easy breezy week or a totally hard week, and it depends so much on your own chart and what's going on with you personally and just the grander context that we're existing within. This is a complicated moment in time, and so our readings are going to reflect that. And I just want to emphasize that and reiterate that. I feel like I say it every few readings that our experience of astrology is deeply personal, and yet it's also deeply reflective of what's going on collectively, and we can't separate the two. So if you find yourself kind of dipping into dissociative waters or kind of looking or listening to this stuff as if it's in an echo chamber that just exists for you at a personal level, that's a good sign that it's time to back up a little bit and maybe reground in what's happening around us collectively, politically, etc., and then come back to the astrology to kind of contextualize what's happening and find ways to work with it. Ultimately, astrology is a tool that can help us stay present with reality. Okay, let's get into the transits. So on Sunday, April 20th, we have a big mashup. Venus sextiles Uranus, Mercury sextiles Pluto, the moon enters Aquarius and very quickly meets up with Pluto. The sun squares off with Mars, and we experience a last quarter moon in Aquarius, which means the sun in Taurus is squaring the moon in Aquarius. And so this is a day that's pretty intense and charged. You're likely to be feeling it emotionally, even physically. You might be experiencing physical symptoms as we experience these clashes with the planets and especially the luminaries. The moon meeting Pluto, well, let me back up. Venus sextiling Uranus can represent shifts and changes in our relational dynamics. Sometimes there's a need for us to experience a bit more freedom or innovation, or we need to kind of look at something with new eyes and get a fresh perspective. And we have that invitation on Sunday here with Venus in Pisces sextiling Uranus in Taurus. There is an opportunity to change, to shift, to make a new choice, and to maybe experience some type of innovative solution in a tricky relational dynamic. Mercury forming a sextile to Pluto echoes that in a way. It emphasizes that there is room for us to communicate more authentically, more deeply, but we also might be feeling kind of self-protective. And so while there is a call toward vulnerability and honesty and rawness and depth, there's also probably hesitation there because it's Pluto. Because Pluto brings us into our fear, our survival mechanisms, our attachment stuff, it can really cause us to overthink, to obsess, to fixate, and to maybe think in extremes, like imagine the worst case scenario when that's really not reality. But when we go to that place, sometimes it shows us the underlying fear or wound or ache that really needs our attention. And so something kind of microscopic becomes really huge with Pluto. And in that way, it draws our attention to the wound. When the wound gets bigger, we can see it and we can work with it. Maybe we can even heal it or tend to it in some way. With the moon entering Aquarius, it's moving from also Saturn ruled Capricorn into Aquarius. And sometimes we become kind of dissociative or detached when it comes to our emotional state. We might want to analyze our feelings to death. We might want to put space between what we're feeling by intellectualizing or by kind of trying to put a situation in a box or figure it out. And so that's emphasized with the Mercury sextile to Pluto too. There is this tendency to intellectualize, but there's also the opportunity to actually really sink into our feelings, especially as the moon meets Pluto in Aquarius. That's a moment for catharsis, and maybe there's some old stuff that's coming to the surface. Maybe we're feeling old pain that's getting animated through the present, and this is an opportunity to be with that. When the sun forms a square to Mars, Sun is newly in Taurus, Mars is newly in Leo, and they're forming a 90-degree angle to one another. This can represent ego tension, but it can also be positive friction that helps us sort of get to the heart of something by moving it through our body. Maybe we need to sweat, maybe we need to get it on, maybe we need to do something that engages the body in a sort of productive, cathartic, friction-oriented way that feels generative to us. And if we don't do that, we might get caught up in some type of ego conflict that causes anger to soar, or frustration or irritation to really get loud and loud and loud. We might feel tired, but we might feel triggered. And so check in, see what's coming up for you, and understand that this is a collective experience. And so other people are likely to be feeling that too, and just feel a bit more on edge. Finally, when we experience that last quarter moon in Aquarius, which is literally just 3 minutes after the sun squares off with Mars, now the sun is squaring the moon. And so they're all kind of locked into this grid together, a fixed grid that can cause us to want to control things or people, or to control our emotions or our environment so that we can feel safe. So if you find yourself wanting to control or grip tightly, if you feel fears coming up and it makes you want to hold on or even like push away, you know, we all have different responses to sensitivity. So maybe your response is, I'm going to grip tighter. Maybe someone else's response is, I'm going to push you away or push this emotion away or whatever. So understand that, you know, this will pass, but this week is starting with a bang, and it's bringing stuff up to the surface that's causing us to probably act out a bit. On Tuesday, April 22nd, Saturn forms a conjunction to the North Node in Pisces. This is a moment where we're kind of growing up. There's something that's being illuminated in our Pisces house about responsibility and maturity, and even like discipline or collective responsibility. Like, how do we show up in the collective? What energy and genius and beauty and creativity are we adding to the picture, and how are we using that to do something meaningful? What kind of meaning or purpose are we finding in our lives in this moment, and what is our responsibility to show up for our fellow creatures, for our earth, for our spiritual lives, for the spirits and energies and guides that we work with? Like, there's a lot of responsibility. You might feel quite spread thin in this moment, and potentially even overcommit yourself, especially in the Pisces area of your chart. But there's also a real opportunity to consider how much you've grown in the Pisces area of your chart, to see how much you've grown and evolved, especially over even the last couple months since the North Node entered Pisces, but especially over the last couple years. Later that day on Tuesday, the moon enters Pisces, and so we're feeling more sensitive. We're moving from a fixed air Aquarius into mutable water Pisces, and there is room for us to flow with it. So whatever came up for you, especially early in the week on Sunday, Monday, that's kind of petering off midweek. And yes, there are still challenges ahead, but we're also feeling more flexibility and more flow with our emotional states. So welcome the changes that emerge. Give yourself opportunity to move through your feelings as they arise and to not clench or hold on to them too tightly. Understand that something is bound to shift, and you might feel this opportunity to release or let go of something too. On Wednesday, April 23rd, the sun in Taurus forms a square to Pluto in Aquarius. And whatever came up on Sunday is coming up in new flavor because we've got, the same players involved here. We're looking at the fixed signs again. And so the fixed houses in your chart will be emphasized: Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius. And with the sun forming a square to Pluto, there is an identity challenge. Maybe there's a feeling of insecurity, and how we respond to insecurity is getting highlighted here. Sometimes when the sun forms a square to Pluto, we feel like there's an outside force that's attempting to control or manipulate us. And that could be true. It could be more of just like the moment, like feeling the weight of oppression or feeling the weight of these collective violences and travesties that we're experiencing could be really ramping up, and we might be feeling it at a more personal level by midweek. This also could manifest as us kind of being the more Plutonian type in the situation and trying to control or assert dominance or kind of overpower. And so watch out for that this week. On Thursday, April 24th, Venus then forms a conjunction to the North Node and then to Saturn. With the North Node, we're really integrating some Venus retrograde lessons. There's this moment where we're coming back to something that we've really been chewing on, especially since really late January, but especially since March 1st, since Venus stationed retrograde. We're integrating and exploring what we've learned, especially in relationships and especially around our values. And so this might be the moment where you reconnect with your personal values or reconnect with what you want and really explore what you desire with more honesty and more focus and more vulnerability. And when Venus forms a conjunction to Saturn, there's a firming up here. So maybe it's a moment where we recommit to something that we've chosen, or we reevaluate, or maybe institute boundaries where boundaries are needed, especially in connections and especially in your Pisces house. On Friday, April 25th, the moon then enters Aries, out of Pisces into Aries, and now there's more fire, now there's more energy. Now we're feeling a bit more like velocity and momentum that's carrying us forward, and we might want to do something about it. The moon in Aries can be deliberate. It kind of knows what it wants and it's ready to go after it. And after you've made whatever choice you made on Thursday, you might feel compelled to really push forward and take action. On Saturday, April 26th, Mars in Leo forms an opposition to Pluto in Aquarius, which is wrapping up a transit that really began in early November, came to a head again in early January, and is now completing its journey and facing off with Pluto for the third time. Mars is showing us where we are needing more fight, but also where we're needing to really hold it down and get honest with ourselves about the way that we might overexpress, the way that we might relate or suppress our anger, the way that we relate to violence and fear, and the way that we at times might act way out of proportion given the situation and kind of fan the flames of conflict, of aggression, but this is very likely to show up at a collective level. And so think about what was going on around November 3rd of last year and January 3rd of this year, and check out your fixed houses again. So that's Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius. Understand that what's coming up in this moment is reflective of the collective tension. And so if you experience personal tension, it's very likely that you're kind of acting as a microcosm for whatever is happening around you. And you will probably experience tension, aggression, fear, outrage, anger, irritation, even like challenges and confrontations. And so pay attention and just be aware. Take caution around this date, take caution this weekend, because people's egos might be flaring and soaring, and they're likely to be acting from that place. So taking extra care with yourself, with your people, and just taking whatever precautions help you to feel safer and more secure is a good move this coming weekend. Okay, that is all for the astrology. Let's move into the tarot. Hey y'all, welcome to our tarot forecast for the week. I'm recording this on Monday. I had to take a day-long break and come back. Sunday was really intense. I suspect for my other fixed sign humans, you're also feeling some stuff. So I'm sending you love. Those transits were a really heavy start to the week, especially for people with early fixed placements, because you're right in the fold of all of it with Mars and Pluto and the Sun forming a T-square. So hugs, hugs, hugs. Okay, let's get into our tarot forecast. So for this week, our anchor card is the Four of Wands. This is a Venus and Aries card, and it's a card that often signifies connection, celebration, reunion. Sometimes there's a kind of milestone that we're experiencing, like maybe it's a celebration, like a wedding or an anniversary, or some type of community connection. Often we are gathering with people who we feel at home with, who we feel safe with, who we feel comfortable with. And there's a real sense of connection that's being forged and built. The fours in the tarot are foundational. So there's something here about foundational connection, spiritual connection, and that could be gathering with people, again, who feel like home to you, or reconnecting with people who feel like home to you and feeling really uplifted by the energy of that community, that connection, that relationship, whatever it is. This card in particular features what looks like a couple that's kind of walking under, I'm spacing on what these are specifically called, but they're like walking outdoors and there's this cityscape in the background and we see them approaching, holding flowers. It's very like springtime picnic energy. And so maybe some of you are having a Taurus season picnic. I know I am for my birthday this weekend. So that could be a thing. Oh, my birthday's not this weekend. It's next weekend. Never mind. But you might be gathering with friends. You might be gathering people outside or just kind of enjoying the splendor of springtime together. And this could really be a leveling activity to do in a week that feels otherwise pretty intense. So if you have the opportunity to gather and connect, I highly recommend it. It could soothe the soul. Our challenge this week is the Five of Cups reversed. The Five of Cups is a card of disappointment, of grief and loss, and it's a temporary phase, but it's something that we've got to move through. Like you have to feel it to heal it. And the indication of the Five of Cups reversed for me this week feels like we might get stuck in that place. We might get stuck in a feeling of remorse or grief or loss or pain. And if you feel like you're halted in place and sort of like treading water in the same emotional state throughout the week, know that that's very fixed sign energy. It's very indicative of the current astrology to be kind of wading through the same waters throughout the week, maybe at times kind of peeling yourself out of it and then returning to it. But generally there's a state of melancholy that's present for us this week. Maybe some of us are processing a loss or a letdown or disappointment of some kind, and we're potentially like pouring the water over our head a little bit. Like maybe there's an opportunity for us to feel a little bit better, but we're not really seizing it. Maybe we kind of want to feel that ache right now. There's a lot to feel an ache over right now, whether it's personal or collective. And so try to be gentle with yourself this week. This could be a moment where you just kind of have to rock with the pain and be present with the pain. Because it's in reverse, we might be denying it at times. We might be trying to blow through it. We might be trying to bypass our pain or deny it or ignore it in some way, find things to distract us from it. And that could actually prolong the experience of pain. And so if you truly do want to move beyond this, you're going to need to find a way to get present with it. That might look like crying it out. It might look like dancing it out or moving it out or doing something to really allow it to exhale instead of pushing it away into a box, pretending it's not there, and in doing so, sort of like siphoning it off. You'll inevitably have to come back to it. If you don't feel it, you're going to have to come back to it later. And so sure, it's up to you if you have the resources and the space and support to be able to go into those feelings. We don't always. But if you do and you have space to give yourself kind of a cathartic experience this week, that could be really powerful, especially around the Sun-Pluto square. Finally, our gift this week is the Knight of Wands, and it's showing up in the reverse. So I'll name the signs. Actually, I said Four of Wands is Venus and Aries. The Five of Cups is connected to Scorpio, and the Knight of Wands is typically connected to Leo, but it can be the fire signs, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. So the Knight of Wands reversed as a gift is interesting. This is an impulsive figure. This is someone who maybe rushes ahead and does before thinking. Sometimes the Knight of Wands really brings me into like gut instinct, like that feeling we have in our belly that pushes us toward a choice, that pushes us toward a move or an action or something that we want to do. And we feel that sort of fire beneath us. We feel that impulse, that charge, and we're compelled to rush forward and just do it. I say, I'm framing that energy because this is showing up in the gift, and so there could actually be sort of a benefit to us behaving a little bit more impulsively or maybe taking a risk this week. So if you feel the urge to take a risk, to put yourself out there, to be a little bit spontaneous or even impulsive, and to do something without like thinking it to death, that could be to your benefit. This could also represent someone else in our life, right? The court cards often do symbolize another person. And so court cards, fire in this case, a fiery figure, maybe someone who has strong fire placements, could be showing up in this energy and in some way kind of offering us a gift. And so if you receive kind of like a spontaneous invitation, or if you get word from someone, or if something happens that kind of shakes things up in your day-to-day life, that could be a real blessing this week. Sometimes the knights in particular are fighting, right? They're like the warriors. And so at times there might be a flavor of a fight. And that could be, right, it's a gift, so that could be a good thing. Like there could be some fighting spirit that comes online this week, and that could be really powerful. So the question becomes similar to what I invited you to consider last week with Mars entering Leo, is what are you willing to fight for? What do you want to fight for? And if this applies more to the people around you, can you embrace and encourage them to go after what it is that they want? And maybe put a bit more trust in people to make choices that are authentic and true to them. And that could be true for you too. Like maybe you need more self-trust, or you require more trust and affirmation and buoying support from the people around you as you maybe set off and do something that's a little bit risky or a little bit more impulsive, spontaneous, etc. All those good Knight of Wands keywords. But something is moving here. On the other hand, and I will add this because this can show up in different ways, sometimes the gift is that we are halted. The gift is that we are kind of pushed back in our seat from making a spontaneous choice or from doing something really risky. And so I know it's confusing that I'm offering these two polarities, and that's an opportunity for you to trust yourself here. So if you're noticing that like the universe is not providing that buoying support, you're not feeling the wind beneath your sails, you're trying to get something going and it's just not seeming to work, like you keep encountering blockages and blockages and blockages, then that could be a gift. Having your momentum halted here could be a gift. On the other hand, if you feel this sort of buoying support to take a step forward and to do something and really put yourself out there, then I would take that as a yes. And again, you're going to have to tune in with yourself here. And that's part of the blessing of this card, is that it invites self-trust. It invites us to tune into our gut instincts. Okay, that's all I have for you all. I hope these readings are supportive. And as always, if they are, please do give me a like, a comment. You can subscribe, you can share, you can become a patron if you want more. And I look forward to seeing you in the future. Have a good week.